All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of Bench Talk here on Empty the Bench. Tom Albano, Nick Videre, Nick Morganson, as always. Now, I want to welcome you to a very unique style of interview. Usually, we are talking with insiders, people within the game, and Martin McCaulay here uh, does not work in sport, but he does play a big pivotal role in one of the stories as of late. Of course, all the stuff going on right now is with the Washington Redskins. Obviously, the Washington Post just broke its story on all the sexual harassment within the organization. But earlier this week, we did have the official announcement of the Redskins officially retiring its name, and some of its potential replacements are going to be a little bit of an issue because Martin here has a trademarks on a bunch of them. So, Martin, first of all, thank you for coming on and talking
Thank
about
you.
this interesting story here.
Yes, I'm glad to get my side out there.
Perfect, perfect. Actually, before we get into those questions, I guess we would be remiss if we did not ask you about your thoughts on the news that did just break.
I'm disgusted, really. I mean, there was a story about the cheerleaders and they had to pose topless, so it doesn't surprise me, but it's disgusting.
So now to get into the renaming process and your role in it. What were you trying to accomplish in trademarking all the potential new team names for the DC
Oh,
football team?
okay. This is not some recent activity for me. This goes back to 2005 when I thought it would be a joke. I thought it would be funny if I applied for Washington Pigskins for a trademark. And this is not just like sitting on a domain name. If somebody applies for a trademark, they are certifying they plan to use that product in commerce. So I did all that. I got a registered trademark for pigskins. The NFL contacted me and said, "We know you're trying to get a trademark for pigskins. That's very similar to the name of our football team, but we will allow it." So after that, I just thought that was so cool that the NFL trademark attorneys contacted me. So next, I got Washington Pandas, and I didn't stop there. I got Washington Football Club. This is 5 years ago, and it was just a very expensive hobby. Okay, I ended up with 10 names. So trademarks expire in 6 years. So mine are they're registered trademarks. They have not expired. Okay, so let's fast forward. Looks like they're going to have to change the name. Okay, so now I see a bunch of possible name changes trending. Every one of them is one of mine. I already have a registered trademark for from 5 years ago. I see people are betting on names. Every one of the favorites on the odds board is one I already have. Okay, so I contacted the NFL trademark attorneys because they wrote me 5 years ago and said I could use pigskins. So I said, the subject line of the email, this was July 4th, like 10 days or so before they changed the name. The subject line was free trademarks. And I listed all these registered trademarks that I had from 2015, 10 names that were all the favorite names. And I said, you can use any of my trademarks for free if that's going to help facilitate a name change. They did not respond. And I didn't know how to reach anybody in the NBA. So I went on Twitter. I'd sent 4 tweets in 6 years. But I got on Twitter and I wrote at NFL, at if NL commissioner, please take my trademarks. I offered them to you for free on July 4th. What are you waiting for me to do? Do you want me to pay you to take my trademarks off my hands? Okay, so then 10 days later, they said they're going to change the name. Okay, so then I didn't think they'd call me because they don't need to tell me they want one of my names. I already said they can have it. All they have to do is go online and apply for the same names in every category: uniforms, bobbleheads, jerseys, calendars, whatever they want. They can apply for the trademark. And the trademark attorney doesn't even look at it for 3 months. And then they could ask me, can we have yours, or will you abandon yours or assign ours? They have to tell me I'm not a trademark attorney. So then they said they're going to change the name. And then I read there's some trademark issues holding this up. So the first thing I thought of was, I guess they want to use the name Red Wolves. I guess they want to be the Washington Red Wolves because Arkansas State has a trademark for the Red Wolves. The Arkansas State Red Wolves are in a lawsuit with the soccer team, the Chattanooga Red Wolves. So I thought they must be talking about Red Wolves. And so I was just oblivious to the reaction out there because my family and friends, anybody who knows me, was supportive. And then, I had a few interviews, and like one reporter said, "What do you think about these conspiracy theories?" I had to ask him what he was talking about. And so it turns out that there's a lot of hate and misunderstanding, that I'm the one who was trying to facilitate a name change by offering my names for free. So that, because it's really the only way I could see they could have a registered trademark in use by the time the season starts, if they start in 7 weeks. Because getting a trademark takes 7 months minimum, if everything goes well and there's no conflict with any other marks and nobody opposes it. I had ones they could get instantaneously, and it's every name on the odds board. So, and then remember I said, do I need to pay you to take these off my hands? That's what it ended up amounting to. I had to hire a lawyer, and I told him, get this albatross off my neck. Tell them that they can have my names. I don't want to be the obstacle. So now it's in the hands of my attorney, Darren Heitner. He wrote a letter to Mr. Snyder saying that his client, me, the Trademark Hog, does not want to be in the way. I do not want to be the obstacle. Just tell us, what do we need to do to get out of the way for them to rebrand the franchise?
So I probably should ask, Martin, because again, how much did it cost? It didn't cost you any money to have to do this?
This is a very expensive hobby. I accumulated a lot of money. I mean, it's not only, I lost count of how many times I did this, but it's $275 each application. I applied for 44. Okay, so, and then you can't just apply. You have to have some product that you're selling. Okay, so I bought coffee mugs, shirts, foam footballs, backpacks, you name it. I had stacks of merchandise to sell because
you had them made.
I wouldn't have gotten them registered without it. So I mean, this was a very expensive hobby. Yes.
So you went and had them made?
Yes. Yeah. I had like Washington Americans backpacks, Washington Americans shoes, Washington Americans hoodies, everything, and for these 10 different names. You can imagine the expense kind of got out of hand. So I thought, okay, if I tell you you can have my trademarks for free, I'm doing you a solid. Okay, so I was kind of surprised to find out that I am the villain in this story.
So I found it interesting, and the term that I'm hearing in a lot of the other stories, I heard patent squatting was one of the terms that I heard. So
that's wrong in so many ways. Okay,
well, I'm not accusing
these are trademarks. They're not patents. They're not. They're not domain names. A lot of people confuse it with a cyber squatter. These are registered trademarks, and a squatter makes an application with no intent to actually use something. Okay, I've never done that. Every time I've applied for a trademark, well, my understanding is against the law to apply if you don't really intend to use it. So, why would I break the law for this expensive hobby? So I actually use these. A squatter would apply but not use them.
Right. And have you done this for other situations, or is it just like the Redskins patent trademark situations?
Just names that would be replacement names they would make good replacement names for the Washington team. Yes. But, you can't get a trademark registration and say that's your purpose. You can't say, how do you intend to use this trademark? Oh, I'm going to resell it. I'm not going to use it. I just plan to resell it. I mean, that's a joke. That never gets registered. That gets refused instantly. I said I'm actually going to use these, and I did, and they got registered.
So I have to ask, what you mentioned before that you had just joined Twitter, right? Just
Yes.
recently, a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
What's the reaction been from people who've again read the press about what you're trying to do? How people been reacting to this? Positively, negatively?
I'll add, a lot of people are entertained by what you're doing.
Yeah,
I guess
they are
just because-
entertained by this.
I'm a worldwide viral sensation. I've been on the BBC, the Canadian TV, coast to coast, live in prime time. Yeah, the media really picked up on this story. And I'm sorry, I forgot the question. Oh, how did I react to Twitter?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the reaction
Okay,
been?
yeah, 4 tweets in 6 years, and then I get on because I think maybe I'll find out what kind of names people are trending. And I got a lawyer a couple of days ago, and he said, "Get off Twitter."
that's advice for everybody. I think
Yeah.
get off Twitter.
Listen to the lawyer.
Because I was confused. I said, I was so naive. I said, why is it that people follow me and then they jump in a conversation and say, your tweets are annoying? What's that about? Why don't you click unfollow?
Unfollow, mute, block. That's the power of Twitter. Speaking of some of the other interviews you did, I want to ask you about a quote that you said. You had said to Bloomberg Law, quote, "I'm the poster child for someone with a trademark registration as the most indefensible of all time." Can you go a little bit to what that means?
Okay. I have trademarks for merchandise, say shirts, for example. I'm selling red-tailed hawks shirts. Okay, that's active. I have a website where somebody can buy a red-tailed hawk shirt. Okay, but some of these trademarks I was not going to renew. I have some that are joke names. Okay, I'm not actively selling Washington Pandas T-shirts. Okay, so selling one T-shirt in 6 years does not count as defense of a trademark that would stand up in court. Okay, so if there needs to be some I don't know, regulations or laws that trademark attorneys can use to file for an express abandonment in a case like that, where say somebody really was calling themselves the Trademark Pandas, but I had this name where I registered it knowing they were already calling themselves the Trademark Pandas. Well, a trademark attorney should be able to go to the trademark board and say, cancel that application. He sold one shirt in 6 years. And my client was using that. So I would say, yeah, I mean, that's not a trademark I can defend. I have others I can, which is kind of odd about this kind of happening between year 5 and year 6, because they expire in year 6, but after 5, they're incontestable. Okay, so I have some Washington Americans, Washington Red-tailed Hawks, which is red tails or red hawks, that I've used continuously for 5 years. I file what's called Section 15, which means it's incontestable. So if their trademark attorneys go to court, I'm not sure what the standing is to make me abandon an incontestable trademark. I thought that's what the word means, that, 5 years, they had 5 years to object and they didn't say anything.
So would it be fair to assume that you're a Washington fan, right?
Yes, I am from Indiana. We did not have a professional football team in Indiana when I grew up. The Colts had not moved there yet. So a lot of us were fans of the Washington football team in the 80s and early 90s when they had the Hogs for the offensive line and they won 3 Super Bowls. And then I moved to this area 11 years ago and continued to be a fan. I usually just watch the games on TV, but I did go to one game last year, an away game in Miami, the Battle of the Winless Teams. And I'm not so much of a fan that I would go wear a Washington jersey. I went incognito in an aquamarine shirt and kept my mouth shut, but I was hoping we would win, and we did because I'm the team's good luck charm. And I turned the season around by sitting there. So playoffs next year,
yeah.
Super Bowl after that. And because
So
I can
were
see
you-
into the
yeah.
future.
So were you in favor of changing the name?
Yes, I said that 6 years ago. They should change the name. And it's not just about a racist name that should have been changed decades ago. It's Native American imagery. All Native American imagery has got to go. Native Americans are not mascots. The red face paint and feathers that fans wear has got to go. It's not just in professional sports. It goes all the way down to high school. And for the high schools that are still using the racist R word, they need to change the name, and the owner of the Washington football team needs to pay the expenses for them to change their names.
So one situation I want to get to is I saw on Twitter you posted the legal letter that you wrote to Mr. Snyder, the owner.
My attorney's letter, yes.
So can you talk about that letter a little bit, just so people can understand what that letter is?
Okay, well, that's a much more professional legal way to communicate what I was trying to say on Twitter all this time, that, if they want to use one of my trademarks, I will get out of the way. Tell me what to do. I am not going to be an obstacle for them to rebrand the franchise.
And it seems like, haven't heard from Dan yet still, correct?
Correct. Like I was saying, they don't need to tell me. Just go ahead and apply for all trademarks for all my names, whatever one they pick.
Do you think one of your trademarks is going to end up being used or not? Or could you possibly see...
Yes.
Yeah?
Because what else are they going to pick? I've got all the good ones. I've got all the ones that everybody's been talking about, all the ones on the odds board. I have the favorite. Red Tails is the favorite. Okay, I got red-tailed hawks, and that's incontestable. I think that kind of covers red tails, because if you look up red tail in the dictionary, it says red-tailed hawk. So that covers red-tailed hawk. I've got Washington Americans. It's on the leaderboard. I've got Washington Red Wolves, which Arkansas State has that, but I was creative, and I think I can get Washington Red Wolves for the fans who really like that name by being real creative and filing for a trademark for the Washington Red Wolves Professional Gridiron Football, which is a lot to say, but they could just go by the Washington Red Wolves for short. But I threw in professional to distinguish them from a college football team that's got that trademark, and I put in gridiron so they can't be confused with a soccer team in Chattanooga that uses that trademark.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that should be on the odds board. It's not, but I've got it. Washington Monuments is one of mine on the odds board. Founders, I've got others. Just about all of them, all the realistic ones. There's some joke names, but I have the realistic ones.
So just to get into another, I want to talk a little bit about what your thoughts are on Dan Snyder, because we're seeing the situation with the minority owners with FedEx. They want to step down and take their naming rights off the stadium. And I think we saw that a banking investment firm is now working with minority owners that own 40%. So what is your perception of Dan Snyder? Do you think he's a good owner or a bad owner? What do you think of him perception-wise?
I refer to him as Mr. Snyder, and I try not to insult him. And when I made the offer of the free trademarks, that was addressed to the NFL. Every time I made an offer of free trademarks, I was trying to communicate with the NFL. I never made such an offer to Mr. Snyder.
So I probably should ask, do you think that Washington fans are going to be happy with their new team name, whatever it ends up being? Because they did seem to have kind of an attachment, however misguided and bigoted it might have been, to the Redskins name before that.
Well, what's the attachment? Because it goes good with the fight song, or because they still want to use HTTR, or they want an R on the helmet?
I guess
Red
that's
Tails,
in the
Red Hawks.
history.
Again, what do you think? What do you think the Redskins fans will do?
I think they'll embrace the new name and go out and buy thousands of new shirts.
So I guess in conclusion, and we'll finish up here, is you really didn't want to be in this situation. I know you have the trademarks and you want to work with the NFL, but you just wanted this to go as simply as humanly possible, right?
I thought I could facilitate the name change, because how else are they going to get a registered trademark logo in 7 weeks? I thought I was about their only option, and I had all the good names.
And it
So I was
seems
doing them
like
a solid.
it seems like the easiest path that they could have taken, and they ended up taking a bunch of unnecessary detours.
Yeah, I mean, when I was the subject of some hate and I was not even aware of it, they could have jumped in and said, lay off that guy. He did offer us his trademarks for free, but they didn't say anything for 10 days.
So now, are you still going to give your trademarks for free, or will you want some sort of a compensation for them?
I am not expecting to see any compensation, but if they voluntarily offer compensation, I would be very grateful.
Should be very interesting to continue to follow this story and continue to follow the just the absolute madness that is going on with the Redskins organization between this, the Washington Post story that just broke, a lot of stuff to keep an eye on for the Redskins and this season, if we even have a 2020 NFL season and if it starts on time. Martin, thank you so much for your time. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Seriously,
you.
Martin,
This is great.
It was a pleasure having you, Martin.